Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today. I think the Central Scholarship Bureau does a wonderful job, and we'll all give a round of applause to Jan and her wonderful staff. They do God's work. How many people here today are worried that they're going to go to college and spend a lot of time and a lot of money, and that they're not going to be able to repay their loans, and it's going to be a big waste of time? Right. So there's a lot of talk today these days about college being a bubble, and it's not worth it, it's too expensive. And one of the things I want to do here is, I'm sure these people are going to talk about, is that it's not necessarily a waste of time. Occasionally it can be a waste of time if you're majoring in beer. But if you actually buckle down and learn something, it really is worth it. And the numbers are very clear. There should be no debate about this. I'm going to show you, for example, the unemployment rate for people with different levels of education. This number here is for people with a college degree, right? So it's about 5% right now. Yes, I think we can't hear you. Oh, okay. Somebody else want to point? Okay, so this number here is for people with a college degree. This is for people who drop out of college. It's better than not going to college, but only barely, right? So what line do you want to be on, right? Do you want to be on this line? Have you gone to monster.com and searched for jobs that don't require a college degree? You can get a job at a supermarket. You can get a job as a maintenance person at a hotel. But if you search for the jobs that require a college degree, then you're going to find a much more interesting possibilities and jobs with real career paths. So it's easier to get a job if you have a college degree. And now I'm going to try to find this one.
Thank you.
Okay. So this is the chart showing income for students, the people who have graduated or not graduated. So people who just have a high school degree, this has been their earnings over time, over the last 20 years, let's say. The top line is obviously people who have gone to college. So it's easier to get to about, the unemployment rate for people with college is about 4 or 5%. People with unemployment rate for college dropouts is about 8 or 9%. So it's easier to get a job, and you, on average, get jobs that pay about twice as much. So it's not about pays to go to college. Now, a lot of people might say, well, people who are going to go to college are going to succeed anyway, and so that doesn't really prove anything. But actually, researchers have looked at this question. There's a town in Ohio called Twinsburg, and every year they invite all the twins in the world to go to their festival, the Twins Festival. And so researchers have gone to Twinsburg and interviewed all the twins, right? And when they look at people who are identical twins, that are genetically the same, that are raised in the same house, at the same time, with the same parents, the twin that went to college, on average, earns about 9% more per year of college than the twin who didn't go to college. So it's really clear that college pays, which on average, unfortunately, we have most college graduates who majored in philosophy or poetry and something like that and are now driving a cab. So new research has come out of the Georgetown University that shows the different earnings levels you can expect from different majors. So if you're going to an expensive college and you're borrowing a lot of money and you're majoring in social work, you're going to have difficulty paying off those loans. I mean, that's obvious, right? Shouldn't be. But if you're going to college and you're majoring in engineering or computer science, I mean, obviously you're going to have a much better chance of getting a job. So not all colleges are created equal, and not all majors are created equal. So it's not a bubble, but you have to be smart about it. And these people here are going to help you figure out how to be smart about it. So I want to introduce them. Okay, so first we have Deborah Phelps, who is principal of Windsor Middle School, and she should be famous in her own right because she's a master teacher and she's been teaching and running schools for more than 30 years. She's also known as a swim mom to her daughters, Lori, at the University of Richmond, Whitney, who's been on the, I guess, at the Olympic trials, and of course Michael Phelps. We've all heard of him. 14-time Olympic gold medalist. And she's written a book called A Letter for All Students. So she's here to talk about job prospects, I guess, in education, and how great. And then we have Herb Goldman, who's a managing member of Gordon Feinblatt, and he's an attorney. He has more than 40 years of experience, and he's a graduate of Franklin Marshall College, right in Lancaster, and University of Maryland School of Law. And we have Tricia Griffis, a CPA, at I'm going to pronounce it wrong, McGladrey, right? Okay, good. Let's see, she's very perfect. She received a BS in Accounting and Business Administration at Salisbury University, right here in Maryland, and has more than 10 years experience in public accounting, and she's active in the CPA Association and various other organizations, and I guess Victor is, okay, great.
I'm here.
Vic Broccolino is president and CEO of Howard County General Hospital, and we all know that healthcare professions are one of the hottest professions, fastest growing career choices you can make. He's a member of Johns Hopkins Medicine in Columbia, Maryland, and has 20 years of leadership in the hospital. During his 20 years of leadership, the hospital has experienced significant change and growth. It was acquired by Johns Hopkins, and he's run several expansion projects, and he has completed an MBA at Loyola College, right here, and also has a Bachelor's of Science from the University of Baltimore. She's a real Marylander. So I think what we're going to do right now is sort of ask each of you, maybe in order, maybe I'll start from the left, right, and ask, you know, when you look at people who are coming into the workforce or applying for a job, what are you looking for in your industry when you hire recent college graduates?
In the public accounting profession in general, I actually have been through 2 very large national firms. I was with a firm called Resnick Group for 11 years, and they're a national firm with offices all over the United States. And now I'm actually with McGladrey, and they are an even larger firm, the 5th largest in the United States, with some international offices. We hire all over the United States. There are actually 3 offices right here in Maryland for McGladrey, and hiring is really the same for both firms that I've worked for. We're looking for candidates with usually about a 3.2 GPA or higher. We actually look for students with 150 credit hours, not just 120. The reason for that is because currently to sit for the CPA exam in the state of Maryland, to apply to sit for the CPA exam in the state of Maryland, you have to have 150 credits. That is changing back to 120. You can sit for the exam, but you cannot be licensed until you get the 150. So that means you sit for the exam, you pass it, but you still have to take some courses before they actually hand you the piece of paper that says that you're licensed. Therefore, firms like McGladrey will require you to not only have the 3.2 GPA, but go ahead and have your 150 credits. And usually what happens is you also get a nice bonus once you pass the exam and you've been hired. So you're usually graduate in May. They want you to study for the exam and try to take and possibly pass the exam within that next school year. And you get a tiered bonus depending on how quickly you can pass it. If your GPA is not quite 3.2, but you have a lot of great extracurricular activities, or even an internship with another firm, that's highly, highly suggested. When I was at Salisbury, I worked for a firm in Ocean City. Part-time, I was able to get through 2 tax seasons part-time, and putting me out on the job market, I was able to get a job and locked in a whole entire year before I even graduated. So that's usually how the accounting profession does work. They do go out and have college campus visits in October, usually September, October of every fall. And that way you want to be looking with the career department in the college to see when the firms are coming to make their campus interview visits. What happens, they interview you on campus, they decide which students they want to continue interviewing, and then you're asked to come into the office for an office visit. And that's usually what we look for and what we do. And this process.
I'm a principal, so I can't sit. I'm sorry. First of all, how many people in here are on the educational track for teaching? All right, education used to be kind of a safe haven for, we always needed teachers. But now it's, we always need the best teachers. We always need the highly effective teachers. And those of you who did not raise your hand, you may end up on the education field. Because there are many times into my office comes the career changer who cannot be the author they want to be, or they can't be the musician they want to be, or they can't be the lawyer they want to be, so they think they're going to go to education. But the stakes are very, very high in that category. With No Child Left Behind, you have to be in there and you have to be ready to hit the ground running and know what you're doing. When I interview individuals for positions in my schoolhouse, and I've been a principal for 5 years, I've been in education for 38. See, I'm a baby boomer. So baby boomers, we went into a career and we stayed in that career. And so I find now that the generation is coming in for education, I am still looking for the person who has the passion for children. Because you are going to touch every one of their lives. And all of the people behind me in their fields of employment, I'm sure they can remember a teacher who impacted them and that drove them and that helped them be the success that they are today. So I'm looking for a person who has a heart. I'm looking for a person who has a strong work ethic. I'm looking for someone who's not going to be going by the master agreement. If I ask you to stay a half hour after, I want you to stay a half hour after and not call the union saying, that principal was asking me to stay a half hour after work. Because we have the next generation of children. They are going to be running our country. Passion, commitment, discipline, professionalism. Because if we are role models for our children, we don't come into a school building on a dress-down Friday. I need individuals who are going to be role models to our children, but can also lead them in the right directions. Having that high expectation, that strong character, and that you are a continuous learner. As I walk out of my middle school today, I'm preparing those children for high school and college. So that's the conversation and that's the voice that we have to have in my field as an educator. As we take a look at education now, we have lots of positions in Baltimore County that people right now are on what's called an excess list. So you want to make sure that you don't get on that list. You want to make sure you're highly effective, that you are moving the children with their assessments, and that you have a passion for what you do each and every day. So that's a little bit about education. And you know, as I walk back to my seat, I have my undergraduate and my master's, and I can retire now. I'm going to go back and get my doctorate. So you are a continuous learner. Thank you. Sir?
Thank you. If one of the questions you all are wrestling with is, should I incur all this debt to get an undergraduate education, then I'm sure if any of you are in law school or thinking of going to law school, you would wonder, why would I increase that? Why would I make it so much incrementally more? I looked at a statistic actually last week of the starting salaries of the largest law firms in Baltimore. I'm the managing partner of Gordon Feinweb. We're I believe the fourth largest in Baltimore. Our starting salary is $100,000 a year. Those numbers, the national firms in Baltimore start, I believe the upper number was $160,000. So there is light at the end of the tunnel for those of you who would want to pursue a career in law. So the question is, well, how do you get a job? How do you get hired? We assume that everybody that gets into law school and graduates from law school is smart. But what we look for is some objective standards such as grades, rank in class, and people who are there any law students in the audience? Okay, people who are on law review, because if you assume everybody's smart, then the people who are at the top of the class and who do these other activities indicate that they're working very hard. An interview is very important when you're seeking a job at a law firm. I think probably, because the truth is if we hire 1 or 2 people, we have 500 people applying for the job. So you have to differentiate yourself from the other candidates. The interview is extremely important because when I look at men and women who are looking to come to us, I have a question, and it's sort of rhetorical, is can I imagine sending that man or woman to meet with the Chief Executive Officer of Howard County Hospital? Can I imagine that? It won't be the first day, but I have to imagine that at some point in the future, people can do that. So we're looking for people who are articulate. We're looking for people who appear to be personable, who are well-rounded. And one last point that I think is very important in the interview process, I'm looking for people who ask me questions, and who talk to us, who ask questions about our law firm, what the culture is, how hard, what the billable hour requirements are, what kind of technology support we give, and I could go on and on. Because that tells me something about you, that you're willing to, it's not confront me, but it's sort of just inquire of me, and that you want to go to a place that you think you're a good fit for, and you would be happy to spend your entire career at.
Thank you. Ditto to everything that everyone has said. Truly, we in healthcare hire from a very broad spectrum of people with, again, varying educational degrees and accomplishments. We hire physicians, we hire environmental service people, that's housekeepers, dietary folks, et cetera, et cetera. So again, we run the gamut in terms of hiring. But one thing that I tell everyone at orientation, and I make it a point, I've been at Howard County for 21 and a half years. We've had orientation every month for 21 and a half years, and I've missed 5. I work my vacations as much as possible around orientation because I want people to know what my expectations are of them. And my expectations are, again, they have to have that passion. They have to have that commitment. They have to have a strong work ethic. But very, very importantly, especially in healthcare, is you have to have a good attitude. And you have to treat everyone. Everyone means no exceptions. No exceptions. With dignity, with compassion, and respect. If you can't do that, you shouldn't be in healthcare. If you don't feel good about helping other people, you shouldn't be in healthcare. And yeah, the rewards are significant. The rewards, monetary rewards can be significant, but that isn't really enough. You have to have that feeling about other people and feeling good. Because when people come into healthcare, they are at their most vulnerable. They are giving up control of their lives to us in their entirety. I mean, we tell them literally when they can go to the bathroom almost. So you're giving up your life, and if the people that you interact with don't treat you with that dignity, with that compassion, with that respect, and be responsive and communicative, and have that good attitude, you're not going to have a good experience. And people who are great, have great technical and clinical skills, I've seen them fail time and time again because they don't know how to interact. They don't have a good feeling. I just had a conversation with the president of Johns Hopkins Hospital, to whom I report, and about a situation we had in our hospital over the weekend that involved 2 physicians who just were inappropriate. I'm going to fire one of them as soon as I get back to the hospital, and literally I'm going to fire him. He will never step foot in my hospital again because he is the brightest physician we have in a particular specialty, but he has no people skills. He is going to go. He will never see my hospital again other than to drive by it. So attitude is critical. Attitude, attitude, attitude. I can't stress that enough, no matter what level of education you have. Having said that, education is super important. You will not rise in healthcare unless you have your master's. When I got into healthcare, which was 45 years ago this coming September of 1966, you could become an administrator with a BS degree. In fact, I saw administrators who were working on their BS degrees and they were promoted to be administrators, which they now call us presidents and CEOs. Administrators is what we are. And you can't do that today. Any hospital of any size, and we're a small hospital, we have about a $270 million a year budget. That is small in Maryland. Yeah, I would never have my position without a master's degree at a minimum. And it doesn't and it can be in most disciplines, but today, because of the complexities of running a hospital and because of the financial challenges of running a hospital, the emphasis has gone away from your master's in healthcare administration to a master's in business administration. It's very, very important. But either one will gain you entree into the administrative ranks. And the rewards, the compensation is very good. Very good. Some of my colleagues, myself not included, make in excess of $1 million a year for running multi-billion-dollar organizations. And so it does equate to responsibility, but education is the key. When my mentor asked me if I wanted to be the chief operating officer of the hospital where I worked, I told him, of course. I said, in fact, I want your job when you leave. And he said, well, then go back and get your MBA. And I said, I have 4 kids. I had all the excuses. You know, I work 60 hours a week, da-da-da-da-da. He threw me out of his office. Best thing that ever happened to me. It made me reflect. And went back. He made it easy for me to get my MBA. And the day after I got my MBA, he announced to the hospital that I was the chief operating officer without telling me. No, really. I walked in, and the security guard said, congratulations, Mr. Broccolino. And I said, well, thank you. I thought he was congratulating me on getting my MBA. And I said, how did you know I got my degree yesterday? And he said, what degree? He said, Mr. Powers announced that you're the new chief operating officer. And we didn't even have faxes in those days, folks. That's how far back that goes. So he got the word out, and I'm forever grateful. But without that MBA, today you will not even become a nurse manager without your MBA. At least at our hospital, we won't consider you without some master's degree. It doesn't have to be MBA. So education is super important, and our field is still growing, but we're not recession-proof. We saw that recently with the nurses. I'm sorry, I've taken too much time.
So I'd like to ask one quick question with very short answers, and then we'll open up to the floor. In these days, a lot of students are having to work during the summers or work during the school year to help pay for college. And yet there's a growing emphasis on these unpaid internships. What advice can you give to these students who need money to pay for college when they think about should they just take any job to get money to pay for college versus the unpaid internship that looks, maybe has a little more prestige? Maybe you could answer.
In the accounting profession, almost all the internships are paid. So there, I don't know that you would have that much of a problem. However, they're usually just paid for like your junior, senior year. There is an externship programs that are unpaid. I was a waitress and a cocktail waitress in Ocean City for 4 years while I got my degree, and it actually looks good on a resume that you were working and going to school and getting the grades. It shows that you have the work ethic and the drive to get what you want. So I don't necessarily think it's a problem to be doing something that's not in your field just so that you can financially get to your end goal. However, try first with your field, because a lot of times I sit down with an interview with someone, I wonder why they did an internship with a firm, if they're trying to go to a public accounting firm or be in the accounting, audit, or tax field. I just wonder why they wouldn't try there first or work through that first.
You were in Ocean City, I was in Atlantic City. So we've all had our summer employment, and as we have been trying to get into our profession. One thing in education that I wish I would have known more about, because I put myself through school and had my college loans. Teach for America is a very strong program. That it's an initiative that we have in Baltimore County. It's nationwide, and I have 5 interns in my school right now, Teach for America interns. So that would be some place to go towards to look for. They help pay for your education. And another thing is sometimes at universities, you want to talk to your advisors or your instructors, sometimes there are grants coming through where the big initiative of being STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math in our schools. A lot of universities had STEM grants where they would have interns in that program, and you would be working, going to school, but earning your master's, so it keeps you going as a continuous learner. So those are two areas. And when you look at the resume, I look for well-roundedness, but I look for, if you're a teacher, hopefully you're working with children in your off job time in the summer, working in camps, working with groups of children that's going to help you to understand all the categories and ups and downs of children of various ages.
For many years, there were programs in the legal profession that all of the law firms had summer internship programs. Frankly, they paid proportionate to what the starting salaries were. So we were very interested in people that not only worked in ours, but that worked at other firms, because that gave them some experience in a private law firm, because at least when I went to law school, I was completely unprepared to practice law. I had never been, well, actually I did. I worked as a law clerk during the year. We think that experience is important, but we also feel that people that are under enormous financial stress, that stress can impair the ability to learn the profession. So you sort of have to balance it. I'm not giving a clear answer because, truthfully, it's just one of many.
Because you're a lawyer?
Because I'm a lawyer. However, I was just thinking, ironically, my summer jobs when I was in high school were in a hospital.
Obviously, we did not make an impression on him. But I had the best summer jobs of all. I worked on a beer truck, really. For 3 years, 3 summers in high school, I worked on a beer truck. And I met people like you wouldn't believe. It was all about people, believe me. It wasn't about delivering the beer. That said, today in healthcare, unlike years ago, we have very, very few paid internships. If you're going into a particular field and you're already enrolled in a program, we sometimes will provide educational assistance, and we will provide you part-time jobs to help you get through that. For the most part, however, I do agree with my panelists here to take a job if you can. It does show initiative. It does show work ethic. If you can get it, obviously, in the healthcare field. And I didn't ask the question, how many of you are interested in going into healthcare? Anyone? Okay, good. We need good people all the time. And so take a job, volunteer something, even volunteering. Volunteer and show us how good you are. Because if a position opens up in the hospital, we tend to look at our volunteers first. And obviously our internal pool of candidates include the volunteer. So please, by all means, show people that you're interested, show people that you're committed, and show people you have that work ethic and that passion. Thank you.
Okay, I'll open it up to questions.
Hi, you talked a lot about going to undergraduate schools, but we barely talk about going to graduate schools. I'm on my second graduate degree. I speak 3 languages, and I had to get a second graduate degree because the first one I couldn't find any jobs in the area. And now I'm going to my second year of graduate school at my second degree, and I'm stressed out about the student loans. I don't know if I'm going to make enough to pay. So I want to hear from you, what is the difference from someone who only goes to undergraduate school to someone who goes to graduate school?
What was your first degree in?
Criminology, now social work.
What are you going for now? I'm sorry.
Social work.
Social work, okay. We do hire in the Johns Hopkins health system, which we are a part. We do hire people with criminology degrees, but they generally are supervisors in our in our Department of Security, and that's primarily in downtown Baltimore. So we do hire people. Whether we hire part-timers or not, I don't know. That would help you obviously with your finances. Social work, we're always hiring social workers throughout the system. Probably we hire more social workers than we do people with criminology degrees, frankly. And again, you have to just look for the opportunities. Johns Hopkins Health System, as you know, we employ cumulatively about 25,000 people in this area, spread among 5 hospitals, and so there are many opportunities. I just say you have to take the initiative and spend time looking at the job postings online or calling the HR departments. That's all I can tell you. But definitely in social work, you're going for your master's in social work, you shouldn't have a great problem, and not just in hospitals, nursing homes, rehab centers occasionally will hire people with social work degrees. But in the interim, find a job. It can be very challenging, but if you're willing to work part-time, there are positions out there.
Okay, I just want to say 2 things. One is, you know, for anybody thinking about what they're going into, I mean, social work is a very noble profession, but it has never been known to be well paid. So anybody who's borrowing a lot of money and going into social work, you should know what you're getting into before you start on an expensive program. You're already in it. What you can do is sign. Have you heard of income-based repayment for your federal loans? Have you heard of this? Okay, so this is a wonderful program. You should all know about it. This wonderful new program for federal student loans. Once you graduate, you consolidate all your federal loans into one loan so that you don't have 15 bills, right? Then you ask the federal government, there's a website you can go to, say, I want to sign up for income-based repayment. That guarantees that your monthly payment will never be more than 10% of your disposable income, which is so that you could actually afford to live, right? And if you're a social worker or an employee of a nonprofit, any kind of a public servant, a teacher or a nurse, if you make 120 on-time payments, that's 10 years of payments, they will forgive the rest of your loan. It's a wonderful new program. It means a light at the end of the tunnel for somebody like a social worker who's borrowed a lot of money to go to graduate school. It's really great. It does not apply to private loans. So if you take a private loan, you have to pay the full amount. But these federal student loans with income-based repayment can really make a huge difference. So.
Can I respond to that? Just, you know, at our law firm, we have 65 lawyers. We have more than 65 support personnel, many of whom are in executive positions. And given the job market, when an administrative position opens up, we're more likely to consider someone with a graduate degree if all things are equal. So to the extent that that's any encouragement, we have to, you know, that's one of the differentiating factors to us, you know, when we look.
Social workers in schools, like my social worker, I only have her at 0.5, and she's between 3 schools. So do we need more social workers? Yes, we do. And I applaud you for going into that field because our children need it, our families need it, but they're very sparse in schools.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really know a lot about that field, but I do know and agree with Kim that I have heard that the salary ranges for that field might be on the lower end. If you plan on staying in the state of Maryland, I believe, and I don't know if you were in the last breakout session, but I handed out a paper that kind of gave different occupations and fields and their median income. That comes from a website, the Maryland State Department of Labor and Licensing. If you go on there, you can get occupation information and median income for the state and how many openings they think are going to open up for those different occupations. In
right, that's a great thing to look at before you choose your major. You know, go in and see if if there's going to be any openings in your major, what the pay is. I mean, you may as well major in something that you might actually profit from. Yeah.
I have a question about the income-based repayment. Are there other conditions or strings attached or things you have to do while pursuing?
No, if you are making so much money that your payment, like if you're making $60,000 or $70,000 a year, your payment will be less than 10% of your income anyway, so you won't get any reduction in your payment, right? And if you're making that much money, you're going to pay off your loans in 10 years anyway, so they won't have to forgive anything. But then that's okay because you paid off your loan. So that's great. No, I don't know of any strings. Yeah. Right, a lot of employers have loan repayment programs. That's true.
So the Maryland Higher Education Commission website is just a phenomenal
Okay.
resource.
So the Maryland Higher Education Commission website. The workforce branch? Workforce grants. Okay, that's something I didn't know about. Right? Any other questions? Yeah.
I have a question for Mr. Goldman in regards to the legal field. Considering the current changes in the economy, I know like 2009, a lot of offers were rescinded, and how do people at firms look at recent graduates who may not have been able to find employment and are doing volunteer work in the field? Like when they come back and they're applying for jobs, how does that look to future employees?
Well, I don't think it's a negative. I think if we were looking at people who were unable to find work in 2009 and 2010, we would still be, in particular, doing volunteer work that was legal. Then, well, I don't mean legal in the sense as opposed to illegal, but you know, that's in the legal field. We would still be applying the same criteria. We would look at how you did at law school, how you do at the interview, and that. So I don't think that's a negative.
Also, a lot of law schools have loan repayment assistance programs, LRAP. So if you go into public service, you can check with your law school and see if they have any assistance to help you repay some of your loans. And also the federal government has a wonderful loan repayment program. If you get hired by the federal government, they can help repay some of your loans as well. Any other questions? Yeah.
If you feel that you are lacking in a particular skill that is highly sought after by a particular firm or a particular field, how do you go about showing your other strengths or like to compensate for something that you think might be a negative in comparison to your peers?
I think everyone needs a mentor, and sometimes that needs multiple mentors to be able to, for you to go and open up to have a very heart-to-heart conversation with them, and someone who is going to be able to help you overcome whatever obstacle you may have. I'm sure that as we look at this panel and up around here, you all have someone that you go to for support. Someone within your family, there's someone within a professional realm to be able to guide you and be able to say, you know, this isn't where you need to be over here, or this characteristic, let's work on this together. One time I had a fear of speaking at one point in my life, kind of like to talk a lot in front of adults, more so than kids was fine, but I would look in the mirror and I would talk in the mirror and see how I looked, so, and see what I was saying and hear what I was saying. So start with yourself, being self-reflective, go to your mentor next, and then be able to get the support of your family around you. That would be my suggestion.
When I started out in accounting, I didn't feel like my strength was the technical skills of accounting, which is funny. I was never the book smart. I go sit down and take a test and I pass it right away. I needed to study for hours at a time. I needed to learn it hands-on and do it myself before I really got it. But I was the person who came from a farm background, who baled hay, who worked hard, who did whatever I needed to do to get where I wanted to go and provide for my household or my family. And then I also had this social skill, which people mostly think of accountants as. Have you ever seen the movie Hitch? And the guy is the accountant, and he wants, you know. So that's what most people think of accountants, and instead I'm the social. I don't mind standing up in front of people talking. I don't mind teaching courses, and they love that of me. And then I have peers who will not teach courses on technical skill, who will not get up and help in that sense where I will. So there's a trade-off in different skills and needs within a firm.
Yep.
The most important thing is to recognize the shortcoming, whether it's in the technical skill or more of a personal issue such as a fear of speaking publicly. And it doesn't bother me when I'm interviewing if someone says, I really have trouble with math. I can't add what I'm working on. That's fine. The first and most important thing is to recognize what it is and then try to deal with it and to be open and honest about it.
It's so nice speaking after the three of them. They throw everything out there that you can think of, and but it is true. Recognize your shortcomings. If you're fortunate enough to have a mentor, there's nothing like it, really. If not, go to counselors or, as was stated before, family, friends who are in that field perhaps, or know someone in that field. I get calls all the time from people in the community whose children are interested in healthcare, and they ask me if I'll speak to them. I love doing that whenever my schedule allows. Sometimes I shouldn't, but I do because I think it's very, very important. You all are going to be the leaders in our fields for the future. And we have to help you as much as possible and give you as sound advice as we can. So don't hesitate to call, have someone in your family call someone that they know in that field and ask for help and give you the opportunity to sit down. Maybe it's only half an hour, but take that time and it's an investment. Take my word for it.
Okay, here's one.
Often in interviews, you're asked what are your strengths and weaknesses. What types of responses are you looking for? Because if you, what types of responses are you looking for when asking that question? Because certain weaknesses can reflect negatively on you in an interview.
Well, as Herb said, the fact that you recognize that you have a shortcoming, quite often the employers will try to help you. They'll take that in consideration. If it's a disqualifier, the employer owes it to you to tell you that's a disqualifier and you have to work on it. Other employers, depending on their needs, if they are absolutely desperate for someone and you have 75% of the prerequisites, they may be willing to take a chance on you and provide you with some training and some mentorship. We mentor people at the hospital all the time, especially in the clinical fields. We invest actually in some areas, some jobs, we invest up to 6 months of training where most of that time you will have a preceptor or a mentor with you. But that's how much we value those particular positions. That's not every position in the hospital, mind you. But everyone who comes in has a week of general orientation, 3 to 5 days of general orientation. But then the training part comes in, and as I say, it's an investment for us to train you right. And as I say, we'll go up to 6 months.
I think it's really important, I don't know that I asked that exact question, but partly it's to gauge the reaction to the question and how someone answers the question. We all have strengths and we all have weaknesses, and one of the reasons it's important to be open and candid about it is when we hire, whether it's lawyers or support staff, we don't want to set them up to fail. If there's simply a mismatch, then we're trying to put I always do this wrong, a square peg in a round hole or whatever it is.
Either way.
One or the other. And so I think that I understand that there's real pressure to get jobs, but sometimes you're better off passing on a job than being in the wrong position.
In reference to interviews, I never really ask for a person's strengths. I always ask in reference to, if I were to come into your classroom and I ask a student what they know about you, what would they tell me? So that kind of gives you a little bit more about, I can answer this in someone else's voice. But I think that when you're asked a question in reference to your strengths, that's the time to really, to sell who you are. Sometimes there's a resume in front of the individual who's interviewing, sometimes there's not. And when I say to let us know who you are, I don't mean you to go down the list and go, okay, I said this, and this. Don't be, I always call this list checkers or word checkers. Go to the website of the person that you're interviewing for. Make sure you have an understanding of the place of business where you're going to, whether it be a school system, a hospital, or a law firm, or a accounting firm, and listen to their lingo. That always gives me, wow, they went and did a little bit of research on who we are. So I think that's very important. And also, I look for people who can bridge answers. My weakness is technology, but I have currently enrolled in. So you let the person see who's interviewing you that yes, I'm not as strong in this as I want to be, but I'm taking the initiative to go out and to strengthen that characteristic about myself. And one thing that really just warms my heart is when I get a handwritten thank you note from the person that I'm interviewing. Not an email, not a typed letter, but a handwritten thank you. Because then I see where your heart is.
What if your weakness is bad handwriting?
That's okay. I should have been a doctor down here because my handwriting is atrocious, but do your very, very best. If you have to, print.
Okay, I think we have to wrap it up, but I want to thank, do you want to,